Okay, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. This is Harry from Spurs TV. And today I'm back with another video talking about Spurs' apparent title challenge or title charge. And these are just my thoughts on the whole situation, whether it's a realistic goal, whether Spurs will actually win the league, because that's what everyone wants to really want to hear, and whether, Spurs can actually mount a title challenge this season. Now, let's just deep it. So Spurs are playing one game a week, which does play into Spurs' favour. As in, right now Spurs just have a first 11, if I'm being honest, with a few couple extra players who come on every so often. And there's no real depth in the squad. But on the caveat of that, we are only playing one game a week. Of course, that might change with the FA Cup coming up in January, which will actually go on to my next point, actually, where if Spurs do go for the FA Cup, I can't see them being able to go for both, the FA Cup and the league. But the mistakes that we did in the past, actually, if we look back to Spurs' last proper, in my opinion, title challenge, back in 2016-17 season, correct if I'm wrong about the exact season, when Spurs were chasing Leicester. And of course, that January, Spurs didn't buy any players apart from a youngster, and Spurs fell away at the end. And of course, Leicester is interesting to bring them up because a lot of people do point to Leicester as an example of how why Spurs can actually win the league this season. But guys, what Leicester did, and obviously fair play to them, they deserve to win the league that year over us. I don't think it will ever happen again, really. They came up, don't forget, and they were tipped to actually go down under Ranieri, and through obviously great teamwork, and a lot of luck, because there were a lot of teams that year who were on the not a downward spiral, but in transition, like Chelsea were struggling. Liverpool were in transition still under Klopp. Klopp was even there, actually. And, a number of other teams, Arsenal, okay, they did mount some sort of title challenge that season, but it fell away very early. And Leicester just, they did it. But if you look at the odds as well before that season started of Leicester win the league, I think it was in the thousands to one or something like that, which is a bit crazy. Now, people may argue back to me and say this Spurs side is better than that Leicester side. Now, yes, it is, but also the league is a lot better now as well. Arsenal last season did a title challenge, whether we like to hear or not. Okay, they bottled it at the end, but they're back this season. I think they'll make another title challenge. City, although they lost 2 games in a row, they will bounce back. It's Man City. De Bruyne is back in January anyway, and they will start getting results again. It's Man City. We saw last season where people thought City were not going to win the league, and they won like 10, 12 games on the trot, and they did it, including obviously being Arsenal. So you can't count City out. Now, obviously, this year, if you look, United are a bit in trouble, but I wouldn't rule out Liverpool. I think it's a bit early to rule them out. They have got a very good midfield, and their attack is obviously got tons of options, and Salah's scoring goals again. And yeah, I think Liverpool is still in it right now, at least. And I think they'll sustain some sort of challenge, maybe not to the end, maybe it will last like 20 to 25 games, but but as for Spurs, the last time we were sort of, I guess, in this similar position to this was under Harry Redknapp back in 2012, where we were essentially playing one game a week. Okay, we did have the Carabao Cup and the FA Cup, but we didn't take Europe seriously that year. I remember Redknapp resting pretty much everyone in the UEFA Cup or Europa League games. I can't remember UEFA Cup, I think it was called at the time. And of course, the first team just played all the Premier League games. Now, we don't have Europe this season, which some people might point to and say, look, like Leicester, we didn't have Europe. We just had the domestics. And, just one game a week. But big issue for me is you look at the back line. If Van de Ven gets injured, I think we're in major trouble. Especially, even if it's a short-term injury, I think we're in major trouble. Romero, again, okay, I'm not Romero's biggest fan, but obviously the alternative is Eric Dyer or Phillips or Dorrington, who are very, very inexperienced. And yeah, if we're going to take a title challenge seriously, I don't think they're the guys you can rely on. As for the fullbacks, again, Davies is supposed to cover for Doji, and he has come on a few times. And Emerson's supposed to cover for, what's his name? Porro, who is still actually learning in that position as well. And do we have both fullbacks went down? I think we'd be in trouble as well, because I just don't think Emerson and Davies offer enough in this system to cover them if they were both if they're both the fullbacks went injured. So I think that's an issue. And the midfield obviously is really good. I've been saying this for a long time, and everyone's been saying this. Really, the Spurs midfield is one of the best in the league, but it really relies a lot on Maddison. I saw the Luton game the other day, and I thought that was maybe an opportunity to try something different, because we were going to have most possession regardless of what players I think we put out, because Luton turned up to just sit back really until obviously the red card from Basuma, which was really stupid. And I think without Maddison, where's the creativity going to come from? And I even argue Maddison's more important than Son, who many people point to and say, oh, well, Son's important, just as important as Maddison. I don't think so. If you vary the play and play Richarlison up front, I still think Richarlison will score goals, but that's just my personal opinion. And when I mean vary the play, I mean just play higher balls. Obviously, we do miss Perisic, who would have helped with Richarlison, and he's out for the season. We never see Perisic ever again. Johnson's going to come back soon, but can we win the league? I mean, I still think it's very early to say. I'd have to say wait till January. If Spurs are within 6 points of first, let's just say within 6 points, because that kind of mirrors what happened in 2012. So I kind of want to relate to that in a minute. And they're still in it. I'd say if we get to January and we get past the Christmas period, which is going to be very tough, especially with our limited options, and he may actually have to rotate some of the team, and just pretty much play the same team in the league that have won each game. He's made the odd change here and there, but nothing major. But he might have to do some big changes in those periods. But yeah, I mean, the reason I was pointing to January is that back in 2012, again, people said Spurs were capable of winning the title. Because it wasn't a proper title challenge in the end, because we got to January, and despite Redknapp wanting Tevez or another striker, because we were linked with Cavani as well at the time, people tend to forget about that. And obviously Gary Cahill, who Spurs did bid a few times for, even before that, I think. But he ended up going to Chelsea eventually. But he did want a centre half, which was understandable because of Ledley King's injuries, and he did want a striker. Now we ended up with Saha and Nelson, who Saha was very injury prone, and he was on the tail end of his career. Okay, he scored a few goals. I'm not saying it was horrific, but he obviously wasn't a striker to take us up another level. He's more like a backup. And as for Nelson, it's the same. Obviously, there's a big joke going on about Ryan Nelson, but he obviously was the same sort of thing. He did play a few games. He did start a few games. He'd come on a few games, but Nelson obviously wasn't a centre half, being 34, to take up the mantle like a Gary Cahill with Ledley King's injuries. And that we suffered for it. And eventually we tailed off. We ended up finishing fourth instead of third, which we were kind of poised to in January. And that was due to the lack of investment in January window. And if you don't invest, you fall behind. And I do think that January window did hurt us as well in the long run, in terms of Redknapp's job, who he ended up losing. I ended up with ABB, who, yes, ABB did do some good things, but if we'd bought some better players, maybe that would have helped him in the future too. So is Spurs title challenge realistic? I'd say now is way too early to tell. An opportunity, like I said, an opportunity might come up where we're 6 points behind the top, 6 points behind Arsenal, or 6 points behind City, within 6 points. I'm not saying we're going to be 6 points behind the top in January the 1st, and Levy will have to go out and buy 3 players. People say just 2, but I'm sorry, you need to buy 3 players. We need a centre half without a doubt, and I'm talking it's ironic about centre half, a really, really, really good centre half who can actually play. Arguably, we need someone who can play either side. With Van de Ven's position or Ramirez, because if one of them goes down, I think we're in trouble there. And I'd argue even a left back, and this is me just saying this because I think Emerson, despite me not rating him at all, he did come in the first game and showed that he could play the system to some very limited degree. I think with Davies has been sort of used as a centre half too, so I wouldn't really count him as a left back as well. And I don't think Davies will be sold in January. But a left back for me, especially because Dogi's very young. I think we do need someone there. As for the forward players, we do need another forward. They are looking at Jota, who could be available on a free, and I think he'll be a good pickup. As for the fourth player, because you could argue Spurs need four players. Could we get a playmaker in January? I don't think so. I think this. I don't think the subs was the answer there. But we haven't even tried Kulusevski there, which is the only option for me that could maybe do a job there if Maddison is missing. And don't forget, Maddison and Son are both sort of, in a sense, playing injured or carrying knocks. So they shouldn't really be playing, if you were to say that. But also, Richarlison early in the season was playing unfit, and which does kind of show. But he's got his mental issues as well. But you can Spurs win the title, though. I say for me, it's too early to tell. Talk to me in January, and talk to me actually on February the 1st as well. If Spurs actually go out and buy some players in January and we're within 6 points, sort of like what Arsenal did in January, like last January, they did bring in a few players, and I think they brought centre-half Kiwior to bring some cover, which arguably we need. They brought Trossard in, who for me I wanted last January, and I would take him in a heartbeat, and I think he would make a difference in the system too under Ange. And they did bring, I think, Jorginho last January too, so they did bring in 3 players. And okay, they did fall off, but at least I would argue they gave Arteta the best possible chance to win the title last season, bring extra players in January. And this is all I want. Give the manager the best possible chance to actually do something, and maybe we might actually win something. So, yeah, Spurs title, yes or no? Talk to me in 3 months, 4 months, and let's see where we're at then. By in January, and if we're within 6 points, maybe we can do something. But it's way too early to tell. I don't want to get people overexcited. Just keep your feet on the ground and come on, you Spurs.